Hey, it's Jeremy from Jeremy.net. I'm a comic book artist, writer, creator, self publisher, and I share my creative process here with you online. If you'd like to get additional bonus live streams twice a month, be able to read my comics on an online digital archive, join our exclusive Discord server where we share artwork, tips, feedback, process, and more, you can become a Patreon subscriber for as little as $2 a month. Head on over to patreon.com/Jeremy. That's patreon.com/GERIMI. If you'd like to get a free digital sketchbook, get work in progress animated GIFs delivered right to your inbox, blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. And if you'd like to purchase physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net. That'll forward you to my Amazon author page. You can pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods. It's a psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. Or you can pick up my most recent project, Morning Star. It is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, but told as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both volumes have extensive back matter, character designs, page layouts, sketches, thumbnails, photo reference, basically show you how I put together the comic. You can pick up all of these. There's links in the description for the video. If you're watching on Twitch, there are links in the About Me tab. And for the comics, there are book flip-throughs on my YouTube homepage. You go check those out. You can see what the book looks like before you pick it up. All right, then. Let's get into it. So, I am continuing with the Snakes on a Mane series, and I was just doing a little bit of sketching on this before starting the stream, and I realized that the sketch that I have underneath, where I've got the all of the different serpents that are coming out, I realized that the problem is, I'm intentionally switching to a silhouette to try and work out what is and isn't working with the creature, what does and doesn't read. And I realized that a lot of the smaller serpents that I had around the muzzle, while they might frame the snake, while they might frame the head in an interesting manner, when I'm looking at it in silhouette, having all those extra forms, make sure I'm on the right layer, having all these extra forms breaking out around here kind of destroys the silhouette of the head. So what I decided to do instead is get rid of the smaller snakes that are coming out of the muzzle. And then I really like this large snake that's coming down, but where I had it originally going in, it's almost like that snake, the big one, is really breaking the silhouette because the way it's positioned, from a silhouette, it would almost look like that snake is going into the horse's mouth, which is not how I want it to read. So I realized it might make more sense to get rid of the smaller snakes and then just have this this larger snake have its body wrap back up around the and go connect with the head at a higher point, kind of on top of the nose, going like right in sort of the upper end of the nostril. So just having those smaller, eliminating some of those smaller forms might help with the clarity, with the visual clarity that I'm trying to achieve. And also got me thinking about the fact that as I'm trying to clarify this, let's see, Byron's in the chat. How you doing, Byron? Thanks for rolling in. All is going well. I'm back to the Snakes on a Mane. I'm just in here cleaning up this silhouette. And I was just saying that I realized that as I'm trying to get this to read more clearly, and I'm trying to now, it's like I'm playing a kind of a delicate balance between adding a whole lot of detail and then scaling back, and then adding more detail and scaling back until I find the right balance where it feels rich and detailed, but still reads. And I'm realizing that it might make more sense to have fewer snakes around the front of the the muzzle of the horse, but then have more snakes kind of as we get around the horse's head and ears and such, having more snakes so that they, what am I trying to say? So that the snakes feel like they're part of the mane, because that's the whole point of this theory, is that as opposed to having snakes for hair, it's got snakes for a mane. So it makes sense that I should have the larger cluster of serpents higher up around the ears and down the back of the neck, as opposed to maybe I've got a few too many on the front side. So I'm going through here and trying to see what I can eliminate on the front side to simplify this. And now that I get a look at this, I can see why I had the strange shape of the serpent that I did. It's because I was trying to draw the underside of this snake's head, but it wasn't reading like you're looking at the underside. Like I was trying to figure out, why is this such a weird shaped wedge? I'm like, because I am not giving you that sense of a bottom plane and a side plane turning, which is what I was going for. So, and this is not something that's easy to make read in silhouette, but if I can make it read in silhouette, that's pretty powerful. You know, if you can make the fact that you're showing kind of a 3/4 angle in a silhouette, because silhouettes work best in profiles. So if I can make a 3/4 shot and have you look at it and go, oh, that is a underside 3/4 angle of a snake's head, and you're reading that just by looking at it in silhouette, then it means it's definitely going to read no matter what I do to it. It's almost like I could just scribble inside it once I get that worked out. Which in a strange way is almost kind of a, I'm a construction guy, volumes and boxes, but making this thing read at a 3/4 silhouette is a strong argument for sort of the sight size shape as opposed to volume, the shape oriented way of illustrating, because with that approach, even though I haven't really practiced it, from what it seems, it's more that if you can get those shapes in the right place, then everything else kind of takes care of itself. And to a certain degree, I think that that's very true. Actually, not to a certain degree, to a large degree, that is true. Now, when you're making comics, that's much harder because you're doing so much inventive work as you go that you don't necessarily have time. Well, I mean, yeah, you don't necessarily have time to work out those silhouettes to the degree that I would like. But if you're really good at drawing silhouettes, I suppose you can make a whole comic just, it's like the silhouette is one of those panels from Wally Wood's 22 panels that always work. So there's no reason why, if you weren't really, really good at doing silhouettes, it doesn't mean that every single panel has to be a silhouette, but if you are really good at drawing strong silhouettes, you could just work out the silhouettes for the whole page and then just go in and add detail where needed. Maybe some panels you've got most of the character, maybe you just draw the face and the rest of their costume is in silhouette. And it doesn't mean that's going to be in black. Maybe it's a color hold or something like that. Maybe you draw the characters and the whole environment is really more silhouette. There's ways you could work around that. And I think that those are things that it's not that I am interested in changing my approach completely, but I'm definitely interested in playing. Like for me, I think a big part of what keeps me interested in making comics is that idea of every time you're working to try out things, because there's only so many hours in a day, And when you're trying to get work done quickly, you don't want to experiment. You want to just do what you need to do to get it done. But I think about friends that say, "Oh, I really want to learn how to learn to use this particular app or this 3D program, working 3D into my comic process, or you know, trying to ink with a different technique than they normally ink, um, all sorts of things." And if I'm not working for a publisher, if I'm doing my own work, then I can just experiment whenever I feel like experimenting. If I want to try something that may or may not work, the only person who I'm responsible to, it really is, well, I'm also responsible to my readers. I'm also responsible to myself. Let's see, I see Jeff in the chat asking what software I am using. I am using Procreate. I'm not sure which version this is because it updates automatically. So I just kind of use whatever Procreate is there when I open it up. I'm using Procreate on the iPad. It is not, as far as being able to edit your work, it does not have as much it does not have the robust features that Photoshop has. But I enjoy drawing in Procreate much more than I do drawing in Photoshop. But I'm realizing a lot of that might just be the fact that I don't really like the Wacom stylus. I know that they do make different types of styli, I guess, plural, styluses. Anyway, I know that I think they do have one that's kind of a thinner pencil shape, but I really like the Apple Pencil because of how thin it feels. When I'm working with the Cintiq, it always feels like I'm trying to draw fine, detailed work with a magic marker. And that's not saying that it is impossible to get high quality work out of a Cintiq, because there's lots of people who that's their primary tool and they do amazing work. So this is more of a failure of my own work than it is me complaining about the tools. It's just saying that the tool as Wacom makes it right now, I don't enjoy working with. I see my boy Johnny's in the chat. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. Yeah, so I'm just plugging away here. I'm feeling kind of low key today. Not low key like bad or upset, but low key like I'm just in kind of a chill, quiet, meditative mode. Like just coming in here and thinking about just what I can do to refine the piece. This is sort of one of those meditative phases of the illustration where I'm just looking at it and trying to judge it without anger. It's just coming in and saying, all right, well, what is this? What's that? Can this be better? It's trying to approach the work with a problem-solving mindset, and then just looking for areas where it can be improved. And mind you, this is a lot of grunt work for a very early stage, because this file, this document I'm working in, is not the final resolution that I'm going to make the illustration at. This is me coming in and trying to work out these details at a low res. Then I'm going to bring this into a high res, retrace this silhouette to make it cleaner. I mean, I think I'm going to retrace it to make it cleaner. I might just let the silhouette be as rough as it is and just paint or do line art on top of it. I don't know. We'll see. But the point is I'm trying to work out these details at this smaller, sketchy level. Honestly, I probably should either decide that this is ready to go to a higher res file, or if I'm going to keep working on this, I should just figure out what are the smaller elements that I'm going to need to fix, because I really probably don't need to do too much more in order to work on to go up to like a larger resolution. Really, it's just there's blocking in. There's a serpent that's going to be here, a serpent that's going to be here. There's tiny little snake heads in here. And I just need to resolve where these little pieces are going to be, whether I'm just going to eliminate them or not. That's really all I need to do. I really shouldn't even be messing with stuff like this particular snake head or anything like that. These things I can fix and adjust and correct at the final resolution. Stuff like this, these fangs should be projecting more out instead of the way I have it there. The whole point of fangs is that they flick outward so that the serpent can inject their prey. Let's see here. Johnny says, I hope you're well. He says, I'm hungry. Feed me. Well, hopefully I can feed your art knowledge or your thirst for creativity and inspiration. That's what I'm here to feed. Is I'm here to try and feed inspiration. But yeah, this is just I think that this is the part that a lot of artists get frustrated with when you have to sit down and do work that is somewhat tedious. Now, I myself, I don't find this that tedious. I find that this constant going and putting in lines and removing them and trying to figure out how to optimize this piece, how to make it look as good as possible. To me, it kind of feels like a hunt for the red October. In that sense that there's like it's kind of like a cat and mouse game where I put down a line and then it changes the piece, and the change of the piece means now I have to come back and maybe erase that line, maybe add other things. And I think it's a poor idea to intentionally make tangents, but I'm looking at where this serpent comes in and I'm almost like, should I have this come in here so that these two kind of seem to merge together? Let's see here. Johnny said he got off work early. He's about to eat some Chipotle. I was just talking to my wife about how much I'm craving some Chipotle, but we decided to get some pizza instead. Let's see here. Johnny says the stream always feeds me inspiration, so mission accomplished there. Thank you, brother. Happy to do it. He says still working on that silhouette. Yes, yes. I mean, one of the things that I have found. This is a funny conversation. Sometimes people think that I know a lot about art, and I always tell them that I don't know that much about art. What it is that I've made a lot of mistakes, and at a certain point, you start realizing if you want to make better art, just stop making the same mistakes over and over again. So it's more of that I have experience than it is that I have any type of wisdom. I don't think I have wisdom. I've just, it's like Thomas Edison. I found 1,000 ways that didn't work. So now I'm just trying to do the things that I know work. And for me, sometimes a lot of people wouldn't even bother to do a silhouette study. A lot of people would just say, all right, they've got this rough sketch here. And they're like, cool, I like this. And then just throw it into whatever their finishing program is, whether they're going to be painting, whether they're doing an ink drawing, whatever it is. They just take their rough sketch, bring it into the next level and go. I have found that if I have problems at this rough sketch level, if it's something compositionally, volume-wise, value wise, lights and darks. If there's something that's not working at this stage, it's not going to work when I go farther into the piece. So, I mean, as you guys know, I go on and on. I won't shut up about thumbnails. I'm always into the thumbnails, and the big reason for that, to me personally, is simply that if I don't fix something at the thumbnail stage, then it's just gonna be wrong. It's gonna be wrong when I go do the finished piece. It's gonna be wrong at all of the stages that I do in work on in between. So I can tell right now at this piece that my composition is sort of working, but there's lots of places where it's not quite worked out. Like figuring out where exactly this larger serpent is going to connect, not worked out. And this one as well. And I'm realizing now, as I just did with these two snakes here, is that maybe I shouldn't try so hard to give every single serpent its own connecting point. And then what I can do is I can take some of these, like take this one up here and merge it. You know, not necessarily like it's a two-headed snake, but just have it so that when I do my rendered version, one overlaps the other. And now that I've done that, I immediately think, nah, I really want to see this one cross over. But see, that's the reason for doing these silhouette studies is I'll look at this, and at this stage, I can look and see what does and doesn't work. Now, there is an itty bitty snake head right here. That's cute. It's very cute. And I am about to destroy it because I think what I need to do is have this come down right to where that snake head is and just go that way. So let's see here. Johnny says, this seems tedious, man. Looking great though, and yeah, a lot of people assume I can draw everything and anything, and I tell them I'm learning. I know so much being, self-taught and stuff. And he says, after a while, it's annoying when people make assumptions about me as an artist. Well, I understand that frustration, but I also look at it as a teaching moment because even if, first off, even if somebody is a creative person, let's say they're a writer instead of an artist, you know, while there may be parallels to the way we create, there's a reason why one works in words to create images and the other works in lines to create images. So it's a chance to share with someone how we do what we do. And also, when we're taken away from the creative realm, when we take it away from people who are fellow artists, then yeah, it's very possible that people are going to just assume that the way that you make things and how you're able to make it is very different from your actual day-to-day reality. I mean, you know, just the fact I have it turned off right now, but when I first started working, I had this, where is it? My layer reference layer. I've got a bunch of images of horses that I pulled in to look at while I'm drawing. And you could think that on one hand, I'm just doing sight size and I just found a horse at the angle that I needed it. And the bottom horse is somewhat close to the angle that I'm using. But each one of these photos has sort of a different detail that I wanted for this piece. And it's the process of uniting my reference with my anatomical understanding of horses, which is not great, with my basic understanding of cubes, cylinders, volume, and lighting, which is better than my understanding of horse anatomy, but still far from a master. And the other thing that I look at it as is this is a chance for me to practice all of those things. Like for instance, when I first started the live stream, there's this particular snake, and I erased the structure that I had under. I erased the snake that I had before because I realized it wasn't reading as. Let me turn this white layer on. It wasn't reading as the underside of a snake, underside three-quarter view of a serpent. And even that little box there, I don't know how much it reads to you looking at it now as the underside three-quarter view of a serpent. It might not read at all. But the idea that I was trying to go for, I realized it wasn't reading in silhouette, so I erased it and drew another silhouette. Because sometimes you draw something, and just coming back to it the next day, you look at it, and you're like, oh, wait, now I see what's wrong. And can I also throw in, obviously, I talk a lot about flipping drawings. Shout out to Carl Altstetter, godfather of getting me to flip drawings every time. Take a drink every time I mention him and flipping drawings. But that thing of looking at the piece the next day and getting a fresh look at it, that is what flipping your drawings does. Flipping your drawings is like traveling into the future, seeing what's wrong. Because you know how sometimes you get way, way down the finish of a piece and you find a mistake and you're like, oh. But now you don't want to go back and fix it because you've already done all this rendering and maybe you've started inking it. Maybe you're almost done when you find the mistake. You're like, oh, I wish I had caught this earlier. That is what flipping your drawing is. Flipping your drawing is a time machine to allow you to reach forward, see what the mistakes are that you're going to wish you had fixed, and then leap back to the present and fix them. It is the Terminator of making art. So that is why I am always on you guys about flipping your drawings, whether you like it or not. I didn't like it. But yeah, people definitely will make assumptions about what your process is and how you do things. And I think it's okay. I mean, it's your right to feel however you feel about it. But the feeling that I try to have is I try to look at it as a chance to say, well, it's kind of what I do here on the live stream. I say, all right, well, let me bring you into my process a little bit. Let me show you what I'm doing and why. And now I think I'm going to do this one as another snake with its mouth open. So when I'm drawing these snakes, it's always really simple. When I'm drawing the snake heads, I mean, it's just a wedge, a block, like a rectangle that's sloping at the top. And then I just say, all right, well, how much mouth do I want it to have? So let's say I want its mouth to be not super wide, gaping open, but maybe down here. I just put that bottom line. And normally I would just connect it right there. But since snakes can kind of unhinge their jaw, I might go with it a little bit lower and then have like the jaw is starting to unhinge. Although they really only do that when they're swallowing large prey. But, all of this is just boxes and cylinders. I forget the name of the website, but there is a website who their whole thing is teaching you how to focus on drawing primitive forms and improve on that. The name is super descriptive. I just can't remember it right now. If anyone else happens to know, feel free to drop it in the comments. I don't remember. But even this, I go in, I fill all this in, and when I am done, I'm still gonna come back and look at it and say, all right, does this read as a snake looking at it more kind of from the front with an open mouth? And if it doesn't, that means I have to go back and rework that silhouette. This kind of reads, but the head is too big. So let's just shrink that a little bit. Now, I'll tell you, it works, but I don't like that shape. So that might mean that I either need to go with a different position. I might need to go profile or 3/4. And also, what's going on in here and here, really, and here, all of this, that negative space isn't compelling. It's not working right. This curve of the serpent's body is not as dynamic as it should be. So these are the challenges. These are the kind of things that I could just say, oh, well, it seems to be working, and then go on to the next stage, and end up having a piece that I'm not happy with. Instead, I'm like, let me just take the time to try and work it out correctly here. All right. I was trying to work closely so that you guys can see what I'm doing, but really, you'll have to bear with me. And if it gets frustrating looking at tiny drawings, let me know and I'll go back in. Um, I really do need to zoom out in order to do this properly. Because the point of zooming out is that you really can kind of see the picture as a whole. It's too easy to get tricked into thinking your piece is working because you're drawing like a detail that looks good, or it might look good when you're zoomed in. Then when you zoom out, you're like, oh, it's not adding something to the greater whole, or you're putting detail in the wrong place, and it actually might become distracting from the greater whole. So I guess the first thing I need to figure out is where I want this to attach. Because I don't want to destroy this silhouette of the ear right here. So that means that this area right here, if I want to protect this, it means that my space to work out where this big snake is going to attach is basically somewhere in this region. which means if I were to go in here and just erase everything between those two ears and start again, that's all fair game. Because the point of this is to wipe out much detail as I'm putting into this. Keep in mind that for me, this is still a thumbnail. It's a highly detailed thumbnail. Well, at this point, it's more of a layout drawing because I'm at a thumbnail. I'm not necessarily obsessing this much about it, but in order to get these elements to all connect correctly, I need to be okay with drawing, erasing, taking something that's not working and just removing it. So basically this space in here between the ears, this is all fair game. My goal is simply to make the connections feel organic. But also, I don't want it to be too repetitive. Like, as soon as I erased this, I started looking now, and this is kind of repetitive, kind of repeating the same arc that that one is making. So I have to find a way to make this one differentiate between the two. Let's see here. James says, nice silhouette. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And good to see you. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't go in the same direction as these, but what it implies is that I should find a way to make this second one differentiate from number one. And I talk a lot about tangents because for me personally, the things that I am bad at and I need to constantly work on, number one, proportion. It's a horrible. Okay. So proportion is the number one thing that I personally struggle with whenever I'm drawing figures. They come out weird and wonky. Number two is tangents. That should be a T. I don't know why I started doing T. Tangents. That's the other thing. I have tangents in my work all the time, and you can see a lot of me moving and erasing is really me just fixing tangents. That's sort of where we're at right now. Proportion is not particularly important to this drawing because I'm not drawing a simple human figure, or I'm not drawing multiple figures interacting with each other like a fight scene or that kind of composition. It's not even a full body pose because a horse can be way out of proportion as well. In this, it's just a bust of a fantasy creature, so proportion is not really important. Tangents are very important with this. Then the third thing is twinning. Twinning / repeating. So twinning is an expression, if any of you are animators, that's something that you'll probably hear talked about in animation a lot. And it's sort of like if you've got a character and they've got a piece of trailing fabric, or they've got like, I don't know, some secondary piece of animation, and that they're moving exactly the same. They're paired up and moving the same stuff, like, or even this is a little bit too, it's a little bit too symmetrical, even though they're moving at different wave segments. So the idea is to have one thing moving like that. You could have one moving like this and then one coming forward and back in space. It's hard for me to do it with my hands, but what I'm trying to get at is the idea of having multiple things doing the exact same thing. So right now, I put numbers there. I'm going to now say that these are both. The problem of twinning is happening with this one and this one. They're twinning too much. And that's something that I'm trying to work out. When you've got a thing full of snakes, it's very difficult not to make them twin. Um, I mean, in this one, this region right here, I've kind of got one snake head going up, one snake head coming forward, and then one snake head coming up and then down a little bit. So that kind of breaks these three up. It's giving them a sense of variation. And that's what I need to achieve in this whole segment of the snakes coming out of the head, is how to break them up so they're not twinning. So these are not things that I'm saying, oh, this is what all artists have to work on. These are three things that in my personal work, they are problems that I find repeatedly crop up again, and I need to work on fixing them. And I'm pointing it out to you because maybe you can look for these problems in your own work as well. And I intentionally give myself projects where I'm forced to deal with my weaknesses. Some people say, rely on your strengths. And I think that it's not cut and dry. I think there's times when you should just do the things you do best and try to avoid the things that you're not good at so you can make progress and really shine. But I also think it's worthwhile to take the things that you find challenging and forcing yourself to kind of come at them. Let's see here. I'm going to put that on a separate layer so I remember to come back to it, because that's what I'm going to title this live stream. Anyways, twinning. Right now I've got some twinning going on and I need to fix that. In fact, to be honest, these arrows are kind of a helpful compositional tool. So I've got this going this way. Now, what if I try to arc this back this way? Now, this one still twins a little bit. It's still twinning with the one on the far right. But I think the fact that the head of the one on the left is going up, and this one, the head is going down, that might help break up the twinning enough. So the challenge is how to curve the head that's in the middle without it. Now, the other thing aside from twinning is mirroring. So making something perfectly symmetrical. And true, on top of the serpent's head, these are on top of the horse's head, these are very asymmetrical. But at this close up range, it could be something where it could feel too much like these two snake heads are almost like a T, and then here's one head and here's the other head. So I'm just sort of playing with arcs here, trying to find an arc that has a rhythm that plays well with the others. Let's see here. James mentioned he spent some time messing around with basic shapes this past week. Cool, glad to hear it. It's funny because for the longest time, I really resisted silhouette work because I've resisted shape sight size, which is very shape oriented. But I'm seeing it took some trial and error for me to see how I can utilize shapes to improve my volumes and utilize volumes to improve my shapes. And I think part of that is that they're not separate. Shape and volume are one. They're unified. But because in the world that we live in, you're walking around in the three-dimensional world. Oops, plug got loose for a second. Hopefully it'll, there we go. All right, that's on. Shape and volume are not separate, they're unified. But when we are living, when you look around at objects in your house, when you look at your phone or a pencil sharpener or a TV or a stereo or whatever, if the volumes, if the shape, the silhouette isn't reading, because we're used to interacting with a tactile 3D world, it doesn't really bother you. If the volumes, let me this way, we don't live in a world where there's no volume. Even a piece of paper has thickness. So if the silhouette of something is a little bit wonky, it doesn't really matter to us because everything has volume. And our minds, our eyes are trained to read and understand that. I think if we were walking around and we saw something in the world, when you see something that looks flat, like when you walk through a movie theater lobby and you see those standee cutouts at a distance, they read as shape and they read as three-dimensional because it's got graphics on it that you would read at a distance. When you get close, you see obviously it is a 2D flat object and it looks weird. The closer you get to a flat two-dimensional object with three-dimensional images printed on it, the more your eyes read it as incorrect. And when I say incorrect, just that it's not an actual physical object in the world. When you're making a picture, you have to create that for the viewer. That's the real challenge. And that's where sometimes it feels like there's an argument that shape is more important than volume. There's an argument that volume is more important than shape. It's not that one is more important than the other. It's that the two are the same, and you have to figure out how to make the shape and the volume agree with each other. And the problem with that is sometimes in the real world we don't question it, but on art, when you look at a static picture, sometimes volumes that are realistic don't give you a compelling silhouette. And sometimes a compelling silhouette will not translate into three-dimensional volume. I mean, that's why the job of character designers for 2D animation is so difficult, because what looks cool with flat 2 dimensions may be very difficult to animate. Even if it's a simple figure, the way that the forms attach may not be something where it lends itself to smooth, cohesive, like a walk cycle, something as simple as a walk cycle. I mean, if you can't do a walk cycle for a character, you're certainly not going to be able to make them jump and fight and do all sorts of other cool stuff. So it's something that, and mind you, I am not a character designer in animation. I've interned at animation studios, so I've been around professionals who do it well. And so I'm speaking from the standpoint of someone who is adjacent to animation but has never worked full-time in animation. But animators and character designers make something that is difficult look simple. And when I say difficult, I just mean intellectually how to craft the forms, the volumes, to craft the shape so that it moves in a way that our eye reads as realistic. Or even if it's stylized, it moves in a manner that doesn't break the logic of the world, the animated world. So it can be super stylized and unrealistic movement. Like when you look at the Flintstones, the fact that when they walk, their feet just go a little, they just spin in this kind of rapid little jumble. But it doesn't break the logic of the world, so it works. And when I say that they make the difficult look easy, I'm sure there's lots of character designers who probably don't think that a simple character design is that difficult. Because I think when you do something long enough, you get experience enough at it that it's sort of like, no, it's just work. In the same way that a mechanic changing not just your oil, but maybe changing your transmission fluid and replacing the transmission gasket, they're like, dude, I can do this in like 15 minutes. It's not hard. For someone who is not mechanically inclined and has never climbed underneath a car, it might seem like magic. It might seem like wizardry. And I think character design can be the same way. There probably are character designers who look and they're like, dude, it's not that hard. But by the same token, for someone who doesn't do it very often or has never done it, it could seem incredibly challenging. I mean, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier, Johnny. Just that idea of people making assumptions about how you work or what you can and can't draw. Like anytime I tell somebody that I can't draw something, they look at me like I'm an alien. They're like, dude, I see. They're like, I seen the YouTubes. I know you know how to draw. And I'm like, part of the thing with the horses is I finished drawing an entire 8-issue Western comic. And I thought by the time I was done that I would be great at drawing horses, and I'm not. So I continue to have this obsession with wanting to get better at drawing horses, hence the Medusa. I mean, I will tell you the motive behind doing this piece is that this on Pinterest, this piece continues to get shared. The original sketch that I did, people continue to share it and like it, and I don't know why, but people really like it. So I thought I should make a T-shirt of this because we live in a capitalist society, and I want to get paid. Nothing's wrong with the audio. I'm just thinking. Now, what I could do here is have this serpent go all the way over here and then come all the way back. But that also runs the danger of making this thing even more complicated than it needs to be. Hell, I can make it come around this way. I mean, that's kind of the same thing. And I think that's something that's interesting is thinking of two-dimensional forms in 3D. The idea of looking at this and thinking, even though I'm drawing it as a flat object, that I am trying to think about it not just as a serpent, but hang on, let me erase that little mark there. Thinking about how this object is moving around the other elements in space, even though I'm looking at it in a flat two-dimensional form. So yeah, for a lot of people, this might feel tedious, but going through and doing the tedious work is how you fix an illustration. Sometimes it's just a matter of zooming out and looking and seeing if I like what I've done there. See, Amar's not here because Amar would be like, "What your perfectionism and what you doing your perfectionist bit for again?" Um, yeah, I am definitely being a perfectionist about this. I'm looking at it like, "Oh, this isn't right. This isn't right." You know that whole thing about like having art directors that tell you when you ask them what they want and they say, "Well, I'll know it when I see it." I'm doing that to myself right now. I am my own worst art director. Let's see what happens if I move this up and then down. Bring that down a little bit. And now we come back again to that thing of what kind of like, it's not just are the shapes, are the snakes themselves twinning, but this negative space in here. Now it's fine for this negative space. It's good for this negative space to be here. But I'm now looking at this and saying, well, are they making an interesting variation? Because I've got one that's a little bit wider. I've got one that's long and skinny. So I guess the real question is, how do I differentiate this negative space, this third one here? So it's a constant back and forth between volume and shape. Bring this down a little bit. Shave a little off of here. So we're almost at the top of the hour. I'm going to go for a few more minutes and then we'll wrap it up. So if anybody has any questions, comments, what have you, now's the time to throw them in there. Now I'm turning this off again, taking a look. So there's two ways I can go in terms of resolving this serpent. I can stick with this and try to find a good attachment point on this side, or I can come back to my original design and have it attached somewhere in here on the same side as this serpent. Hmm. Now that also removes the fact that the thing I was talking about shape twin about the negative space. I kind of had a wider negative space before, but not so much now. I think that works. Now I just need to figure out where I want to put this guy's head. And I do need to work out his attachment. And then there's a few little tiny ones that I either need to put snake heads on or eliminate completely. But yeah, it really changes my process when I'm thinking so hard about the silhouettes. I mean, in fact, it kind of makes me want to start doing my thumbnails completely in silhouette and just see how they read. When I'm doing not just these, but basically when I'm doing comics or any illustration, it's just thumbnail in simple silhouette shapes, and then work on filling the shapes in beyond that. Because it makes me a lot more aware of these negative spaces and how they are reading. And I can see places where the drawings themselves, the objects may not seem like they're twinning, but the space in between them might be twinning. And that's when I can say, oh, that's what's wrong with the piece. Um, Looking at these silhouettes, it's another way to get deeper into composition in terms of composition being one of those invisible things that you're like, well, what is composition? How do I describe composition? I don't understand this. Um, Looking at these things like the negative space and the rhythm of the both the positive and negative spaces, those are all some of the aspects of composition that until you look specifically at those things, you're not seeing it. So when someone says your composition is off, your composition is unbalanced, or it's too symmetrical, you may not see it until you look at your sketch or your finished piece in a silhouette form. Then once you look at it, then you can see all of a sudden you're like, oh, I see how it's twitting, or I see how it's too symmetrical. I see now how it's unbalanced in a bad way as opposed to a good way. Um, all of these things, it won't cure every problem, but a lot of these different techniques, it's like the things like the flipping the drawing, the silhouettes, the stuff that when I list my top 4 tips for fixing a drawing before, it's not that these tips will fix all of your problems. It's almost like each tip will fix one problem, but if you use them all together, you can find ways to fix the fundamental flaws of drawing. Um, and once you can fix those fundamental flaws, it really opens up the playing field for you, because then you're making drawings and your basic piece is fundamentally, and when I say fundamentals, I mean the fundamentals of drawing, it's fundamentally sound, it fundamentally works. And if you're starting from a drawing or a form that fundamentally works, then that's when you can start making really striking pieces. That's when you're taking your work to the next level. So I'm adding a little bit of a bulge to this negative shape here. And that bulge is kind of indicating that the serpent is attaching right around here. So it's still giving you, I'm getting that benefit of that negative shape being long, this negative shape being a longer piece, but it's still implying the fact that these volumes are interacting with each other. And who knows? I don't know how that'll come off in the actual drawing. We'll have to see. But in my mind, looking at this, I feel like adding that to the negative shape gives me more interaction between these forms. So as the more I do this, the more I'm working in silhouette, the more I'm seeing the three-dimensionality in the silhouette. And that is the personal goal for me. So on that note, guys, thank you again for hanging out, for spending time with me. If you want to spend more time with me, and if you want to see me go not just into talking about general process and theory ideas, but if you actually want to see how the sources that I go to learn these fundamentals, then you can join Patreon and participate in our art book study group. It's a live stream we do twice a month. They're 2.5, 3 hours long, and we try to dig into some of the best art books around, try to suck out all the knowledge we can. We've been doing an ongoing series on Walt Reed's The Figure. Although this past week we did a little bit of an experiment where I was doing some life drawing using line of action. Next week we're going to go back to continuing with Art Reed's The Figure, but I'll be open to doing more life drawing depending on if people ask for it. That said, for as little as $2 a month, you can become a Patreon subscriber. You get access to, at this point, hundreds of hours of art book study group where you can watch the archive, see all of the studies that we've done together, hear some comments and feedback from some members of our Patreon group. As little as $2 a month, you can get that. You can read my comic books online on a digital archive, get access to our Patreon exclusive Discord where we share artwork, give each other feedback, talk process, joke around, share all that and more. If you want a free digital sketchbook, if you'd like work in progress animated gifts, they'll right to your inbox. If you would like to get blog posts about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what's inspiring me creatively, you can sign up for my free monthly newsletter at newsletter.jeremy.net. If you'd like to pick up physical copies of my comic books, or if you read digitally on Comixology or Kindle, you can go to amazon.jeremy.net, pick up books like my first graphic novel, Eye of the Gods, a standalone psychological thriller about a man cursed with visions he cannot control. You can pick up my most recent series, Morning Star. It is Lucifer's Fall from Heaven, told as a Western. It's an 8-issue series. Volume 1 contains issues 1 through 4. Volume 2 contains issues 5 through 8. Both have extensive back matter, character sketches, character designs, thumbnails, photo reference, script excerpts, and more. I guess to show you how to put the book together. You can check all that out at amazon.jeremy.net. That's GERIMI.net. And there's links to all of these in the description for the video. If you're watching on Twitch, go to the About Me tab for links. And thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks for the comments, feedback, and good vibes. I hope you guys have a great day as well. Hope I'm sending positive vibes to all you. I see my bud, Dan Plagle, at the end, hopping in there. Morning Star. Thanks, Dan. Good to see you. We're just wrapping up here, so I will tell all of you, as always, that's it for now. Go be creative.